Authors Over 50, Writing in Life's Sweetest Third. Authors Over 50's weekly podcast celebrates writers and their journeys to publication. Writing after 50 is a whole story on its own, so let's skip to life's sweetest third and talk with authors about their journey from pen to publish. Welcome. I'm Julia Daly, your host, and I invite you to listen to interviews with writers who've achieved their goal of publishing a book just later in life. We've seen award lists for under 30 or under 40, but I've yet to see lists for those who've achieved a significant milestone of their own, launching a new career and publishing their first book after the age of 50. We will hear about these authors' inspirations, struggles, strategies, and the smell of that first book. These writers' journeys inspire me because I'm one of them. My guest today is a mom and wife, chef, yoga lover, and a slight Italian diva. She's a Georgetown University grad who does all the mom stuff you'd expect, but she does it all in style with a magnetic, youthful spirit. She's constantly simmering with new ideas for recipes, life hacks, and ways to squeeze the most out of life. Now, in her new book, Loving Life at 50 Plus, Embracing Aging Through Humor and Wellness, she's sharing her wisdom in and out of the kitchen to help women everywhere make the most of middle age. Welcome to Authors Over 50, Maria Sabando.
Hi. Thank you so much for that introduction. That was beautiful.
Maria, our opening question on Authors Over 50 is always, what took you so long to write your first book?
What took me so long to write my first book, Julia, is two things: time element and confidence. Now, I'll tell you, the reason was the time element was it was never the right time because I was raising children, and then it became the right time when I had this empty nest thing. And then when I had the empty nest thing, another factor that needed to be in the equation was confidence, because you're going to expose yourself when you write. There's no two ways about it. So I wanted to write a book that would help me help others, and by helping others, I would help myself. A journey, but how we get through midlife as women who struggle with midlife, and there are not that many resources. There are now, actually, many more to my chagrin. I'm very happy about that. When I wrote it, I set out to write a book that would help fill a lot of my friends were having that void around my age because of the children thing, for other reasons too. And there weren't a lot of resources and places to go with that because it's not a very glamorous thing to talk about. And luckily, maybe you've noticed that has changed in the past couple of years. People are really addressing the menopause thing, the midlife thing. This book is very light, however. It doesn't address medical terms. It deals with things in a much more domestic manner. I'm finding most people and women enjoy that. I find some women, if you're digging for something deeper, you may have to really read between the lines, because what I do is I use cooking and yoga as a tool for telling people how to get happy. And I know it applies to me and to a lot of people I know, but there may be people who need more convincing. Talking about relationships in there too. So this is my book.
It's beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Loving Life at 50 Plus. I do humor and wellness because humor and wellness to me are the balancing factors. And that's why I talk about yoga so much in this book, Julia, because it's kind of like a metaphor for balance. You have to enjoy your life, but at the same time, be realistic about your limitations at this point. So, you could explore your dreams, but you still have, you're not 20 anymore. So for instance, I talk about looking your best, and you could still do a great job and have great, wonderful relationship with your husband and your marriage and look really fantastic. We have a lot of tools at our disposal as women and as smart people. but we're not 20. I'm not 22 and 21 like my beautiful daughters. So I go on, and the one of the things that anchors on is love in my life and love of family. And part of the love of family is gathering around the dinner table and having a whole bunch of great dinners and gathering with friends, doing catering. And that brings an enormous amount of joy and fulfillment to all our lives, our friends and family. Love, love and food are connected. I'm Italian. I know that only too well. So I talk about keeping the balance with the yoga and the walking and healthy food. Now, this book is, you won't find this book totally full of, health food. There's beverages, alcoholic beverages in here. There's desserts because you have to have moderation. And one of my chapters, I actually talk about, you might find surprising the title, Indulge So You Don't Bulge. So once in a while, treat yourself and also indulge because uh, a lifetime of ascetic living is not what we're here for. And it's ultimately not going to bring you the results you want. You want to be happy. Humor.
Well, I grew up in the South and we always celebrated around food, and not always healthy food, but that's what I long for, all of those dishes of my childhood.
Yeah. Yeah. And you could totally lighten those up, but some of them don't lighten them up. I have some family recipes in here that my mother gave me that I would not dream of lightening up. You got to watch your portion control and you're just fine. I'm of the opinion a taste of honey is better than none at all.
Absolutely. Well, you certainly sound like a cheerleader for those of us over the age of 50, which I am as well, far over the age of 50. But not everyone will even admit to being over 50. How did you learn to embrace all the aspects of the aging process, and when did you learn to love it?
First of all, you shouldn't be afraid to admit you're over 50 or any age because you've earned that wisdom of being walking on this earth that long and you've earned that status. And you know what? You are great. The fact that you actually take an interest in improving yourself means you're great. And I think that we should keep in mind that everyone's hard on themselves. Everyone's hard on themselves. Are we not? I think the first thing to admit is when you have a weak link, it's best to admit it. For instance, you may hate to admit that. I know women who like hate to admit that sometimes they're lonely or bored. Is this a crime? I don't know. I don't get the memo that's a crime. Uh, we're all not fabulous and secure every minute of the day. Everyone knows that, and sometimes it's not glamorous to share that, but it should. You have your love of self, which I don't think any of us ever lose. And if they do, I feel that you could regain that.
Well, I hope you've passed this down to your lovely daughters because using yoga and cooking and makeup, you share all the best aspects of your life with others, and I know that that's part of your life with your daughters as well.
Yes, yes, they're more glam queens. They're divas. They're great, and I totally respect their individuality and their spiritedness. But it's interesting how our relationships have shifted. We're just as close, but as anyone who knows who raises teenagers, that the relationship shifts and it doesn't get less or more. It actually changes form if you're lucky like me. And if you work at it, because you have to work at it when relationships grow and emerge and change, which they always should, unless you're living in a bubble. There's always going to be some kind of ruffling of feathers or turmoil. And I talk about with my husband and my marriage. A large part of this I talk about. I wanted to talk about how keep keep the flames growing. There's one chapter as a spicy food. Keep the flames growing. We do always celebrate Valentine's Day and keep the lines of communication, compassion, and compromise going. Uh, I love the song "Meet Me Halfway" because it really is. It's a cliche, but it's necessary. Takes two to tango in every relationship, and marriage, as with relationship with teenagers, ultimately women, your children, it takes work because they're becoming individuals and they're independent. Their personality literally changes. And in some ways, even though we're full adults in our 50s, our personality can change too, which I find interesting. And yeah, my husband is the best. I love him so much, but he works a lot. So his career paths, uh, he changes as he gets more successful. And I like to think that that's a positive thing. But there is a bit of pivoting and shifting that comes in with the personality changes. Um, and I use the word work. I don't think work should be a four-letter word. I don't think work is a bad word. I live to work. So if you have to work on a relationship, that's fun.
Well, I'm always intrigued by the push and pull of mothers and daughters, from generation to generation. I think it's so interesting. And now that I've reached the age that I am and have granddaughters, I love to see those relationships. And like you say, they do ebb and flow and change over the years as I have. And, I'm just so much more comfortable in my own skin now, and I'm not worried about what other people think. And I can have, deeper relationships because of that.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I would say amen to that because a lot of people like to refer to as our filters go away. I don't like to, I prefer saying that we are proud of being in our own skin, and that's why we are more confident. Um, Filters going away, that's fine. It's like a side benefit because the sense of humor just gets better and better. I like to think because if you're not laughing, you're crying. So you tough it out, and it's funny when you get over the hump. Everything is downhill, and it's hopefully we have loved ones to support us in that journey and working on our relationships.
Well, what was the inspiration for you to sit down and write a manuscript?
I actually, because I felt I changed so much with my relationship to food. I actually found balance in it. When I was younger, I came close to being almost having an eating disorder, so I had to change my relationship with food. And relationships with food are like relationships to people, a metaphor for relationships altogether in life. So your relationship with food could change, get better or worse. So if you're not eating too much or not eating enough, you can continue these patterns. It's not going to lead well. Eating too much and you continue these patterns, it's not going to lead to a good thing either. But if you're doing bad eating habits when you're young, you could change this. And it's like the good news Bible. You could change it. That's what's the good news. Through a little discipline, work, and belief in yourself is how you go about it. So I think that I stress yoga, but I hope everyone finds the exercise that suits them. Walking and yoga are my favorites because I feel they suit me and they give me the most stress-free workout. But there's so many ways to stay active if you have the means and the ability and the agility. I I love going on hikes. I love dancing. My husband and I, when we go to parties, a lot of the young people are sitting down. My husband and I are on the dance floor the entire time. And don't you think I'm very proud of that one?
So you were inspired.
Always long as you
Absolutely. You were inspired by your own journey and your own changes, your ideas of food and exercise, and you decide to share that with others.
right? And I hope the recipes can be a tool for people because sometimes if I'm feeling like a little slump and I cook something or bake something or mixology something, I get a lift. I don't know why.
Once you wrote this book, how did you proceed? Did you search for an agent or decide to use a hybrid or did you self-publish?
Yes, I use a combination of a publisher and a media platform to launch the book and to help me the whole time because I felt that it was most beneficial as a novice. I wanted to see a book such as this, nonfiction based on appealing to a certain sector of the population. I wanted to make sure it was presented in the best way possible that wouldn't make it seem like something it wasn't. You know what I'm saying? I wanted to it's such a mixed bag. I mean, there's exercise advice, yoga, and food, and I want to make sure people know that there's a lot in there. That it's, I mean, trying to find a category with this one was I needed help.
Well, after you wrote the book and had it published, how did you decide you would use publicity? Have you found anything that's worked for you or that
Well, I'm
hasn't
blessed.
worked?
Yeah, I'm blessed with a great assistant. So we do a lot of currently we're doing a lot of internet stuff. So my Instagram and my social are just they're wonderful. Also, with a book like this, Julia, I find very helpful to do speakings and presentations. My best experience yet has been I talked at my women's ministry uh, meeting not too long ago, and was very well received. And I had people coming up to me and said, "I I feel everything you feel. I agree with you. I said everything." And I said to him, "Hey, when I asked you to raise your hand, how come you didn't?" They're like, "I didn't want to, but I want to read your book." I said, "Okay," because as far as the level of emotion and spirituality that it takes to work on staying in the midlife zone happy, I was addressing a bunch of women that were really open to hearing this, and then I've done some book sales at craft fairs and and places where they have books and different types of venues for selling things. And it was such a forum that I could speak with the readers, and if not sign the book, talk to them firsthand. Because I'm meeting an author. They don't know me yet. Some of them do, but they don't know me. I'm meeting an author, so it's a great thing. I get to one-on-one interaction because sometimes with a book, it's more difficult to portray in the media. Uh, so what I do is I have a branding, which the branding facilitates the book. So if I'm doing recipes, if I'm doing goofy stories about my family, if I'm doing makeup, because I have I also wear an entrepreneur hat. I'm at my own makeup artistry company. So when I'm doing all that, it intersects with things I talked about in my book. Women's issues.
Well, having a book definitely is your calling card. It can open up those doors to send people into your makeup business or, book clubs would love to hear from you. People who have these recipe shows, cooking shows on television, because I definitely think your personality is your key to selling this book.
Oh, thank you. You know, it's interesting nowadays, personalities and influencers, they have no labels because there are no labels. What do you do? What do you do? What is your occupation? Can I get back to you? But thank you. Yeah, I that was my next goal. I wanted to after going to Williams Sonoma and I got a book signing from Alex Giranelli, I believe her name is, the chef that is on Iron Chef and Chopped. I'm a big admirer, and I was I was just so amazed that to meet her and for someone to talk about their cooking in person is just like such a rush. So that is one of my goals to be able to do that too, to get my name on the map in such a way that people will respond to me and want to know, you know, uh, how did you make that recipe? And you serve it for a crowd, serve it for yourself. And what are you going to do in the future? How are you going to build on it to make your recipes even better? So because I think you're part of this journey for me, for a success for this journey is the next book and the next book and the next book. Just should build on each book is building on the last one. So you're building on your own success.
And I think that's so necessary in our world today because I watch our young people just go eat fast food. I
Oh,
don't see anybody in under 50 cooking at home and sharing recipes like we used to. And I just want them to be able to cook beautiful meals, because food and making a meal for someone is showing your love for them.
Absolutely. And if I can communicate that concept alone, I will be so happy. As an Italian, and Europeans tend to eat slower and take time with the meal. That's just a generalization, but I would love that to translate, because you shouldn't rush your meals. First of all, it's bad for your digestion, but it should be you should have all the food groups. I mean, I know when you're on the run, and sometimes it's just not practical. But and I'm fortunate is that I have the time in my life to prepare and do these and keep the food groups and get the fresh food, fresh vegetables. Part of what makes the recipe successful is fresh ingredients. You could take something that's so simple that just has three ingredients, as opposed to something that has a million ingredients that aren't fresh, that are canned or just frozen. And the outcome for the fewer ingredients is like so much better.
Well, and also, I think people say they don't have time to cook like that. But when I was a single parent, I made a lot of dishes on the weekend and would freeze things, have them in my freezer or refrigerator for the rest of the week. And it really helps if you can, teach yourself to prepare in advance, and then you don't have that time struggle.
Oh, amen to that. I could write a whole book about menu planning. It is so key because we have freezers. Okay, so you could freeze just about anything. So what I've been doing lately is I make whenever I make a casserole or a pasta dish or some kind of thing, I make double and then freeze it in freezable containers, and then I could pull it out for a weekday when I don't have time. Uh, it's funny because if you put it in the right container, it's going to be okay. And I'm not saying you keep it there all winter, but but if it's within the next couple of weeks, yeah, you better believe I'm going to pull that out, and it's just as delicious. No one knows the difference.
Exactly. And I love to keep casserole dishes in the freezer for, a funeral or a celebration, and can take those to neighbors, when something occurs.
That is so practical and very thoughtful too, and a lost art, I may say. I always think about that. Food is a comfort. Amen to that. Food is a comfort, and it's not a sin to be comforted by food. We don't want to, drown our sorrows and overeat, but there's nothing wrong with comfort food. Nothing at all.
Well, Maria, tell us a little bit about the passage you've brought to share today, and then read from
Okay.
it so we can hear your tone and voice in the book.
I had such a hard time picking one, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you about the relationship with my husband, because he's not listening right now, but his ears must be burning, because here it is. I felt that the relationship about keep the flames burning. Okay, so my Otto, he homed in on a way to keep the romance going, and he puts it on repeat like a favorite song. Along the way on our long and lovely road of marriage, he learned that I like chocolate-covered strawberries. Now, no matter what the special occasion, a romantic weekend away, a Valentine's Day celebration, or anniversary, it's always champagne and chocolate-covered strawberries. They are sweet, but his efforts and desire to please me are even sweeter. It makes me want to heat things up with my Gaspasso shots. This chapter focuses on maintaining a healthy relationship with your husband or partner. But if you don't have one right now, don't skip ahead. Many of the same guidelines I suggest here apply to every relationship in your life. There are a lot of ways to keep the flames of your relationship burning, and some of it starts in the kitchen. We've all heard the old saying, the way to a husband's heart is through his stomach. I say it applies to more than your husband, but mine certainly appreciates the love I put into a home cooked meal. It's an idea absorbed from the Italian women in my family, an idea that's reinforced in the grateful faces smiling back at me from around the table, then and now. Cooking is an act of love and a great way to express your caring for your spouse. The next time you're looking for a new recipe, like on my website, officialmariasabando.com. First, consider what ingredients your husband enjoys. Even if, say, jalapenos are not your favorite food, find a recipe that sounds delicious that you can make to please him. I'm not advocating the return to 1950s and please your man at all costs, at all times. I'm advocating that you cook with your partner in mind, which will infuse the meal and the sentiment with love. Making sure to put your partner's needs first at times is vital for a healthy relationship. So I was really proud of that because uh, who knew you could take food to such a level, right?
Absolutely. I think food is certainly an aphrodisiac.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And you don't need to get like real fancy. It's whatever you learn that makes you happy, learn makes his happy and happy, your favorite things, and you approach it with love and thoughtfulness, and really can't go wrong.
You mentioned having more books. Do you have any of those outlined yet? Do you have any
I
plan?
in the Oh, Julia, I wrote a book, and as a matter of fact, you are my inspiration because I see that you are a fiction writer, and I wrote a fiction book, but needless to say, it is not complete. It's not ready for public viewing. So, and furthermore, admittedly, it needs some work and some time if I want to make it as perfect as it should be. But my journey into fiction, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that. To go from nonfiction to fiction, what a nutty ride. I'm telling you, it was like night and day because I wrote from the heart in both ways. When you're writing with fiction, bits and pieces of characters and people you've known throughout your life just pop in there. And my mother asked me, she said, "Where do you get the idea for characters?" I said, "I don't get the idea. They find me because I get characters and I could just go off and describe one personality, and then what is going to happen in this book? The plot will thicken because the more I write, the plot thickens. However, I feel that I want to make it a longer book than it is right now. I feel like not that the characters aren't developed and not that the story's not exciting. I'm kind of keeping you in the dark about what it's about because it's a little bit of a secret. It is it's another book that's hard to categorize because it's not just romance. It's a little romance, a little thriller. Um, it even I can even see my influence of Stephen King coming through when I write this book. But anyway, back to the point. It just I'm in touch with these characters. I feel like I explore these characters, but they need to they need to explore themselves more and they need to grow more because the characters are they reach a certain amount of growth in my book, but I think there needs to be more of an enlightenment in their lives and more of a reaching their epiphany before they the book is ended. The characters are really developed, and the book I really enjoying this, but it's harder to write than the book that is out.
Well, fiction is a different animal, and our characters start to live in our heads and start talking to us, and they'll go on paths that you didn't plan for them to go. But if you just let them have free reign, you'll come up with some very interesting plot lines, and that's fun. I I took threads of memoir of my own life in my first book because I'm an adopted child from a maternity home in New Orleans. And my first book dealt with women who met at that maternity home in New Orleans to relinquish their babies for adoption. So you can take storylines out of your own life and weave those through fiction. And I think it just enriches, that whole experience.
Oh, funny you should say that because I'm doing that, whether consciously or subconsciously, because I'm taking a bunch of uh, women, friends, and family relationships, almost like a warped soap opera, so to speak, uh, based on. I'm not going to say I don't like the word unstable or crazy. I'm going to say spirited women, and there are a lot of us, and I mixed in a lot of circles, and my family we're very vibrant, um, and with that comes, a lot of drama. And a lot of drama makes for a very entertaining novel. And as you know, when you write, sometimes it takes you to places maybe you don't want to go.
Yep.
I remember when I first started, when I got midway to this book, it just dredged up so many memories, so many feelings that I had not thought about in a long time. And that, it had an effect on me. And it really did. But it was healthy, kind of like when you journal and you air out your dirty laundry. Maybe, should I have journaled? Yes, it's always a good decision to get that bubble to the surface. And then you deal with it and you feel better afterwards.
A lot of our writers start by journaling for years, and then they turn those into books. But they say it really is like therapy to write our thoughts and emotions and feelings down on paper.
Right, because you don't know how you feel about things. And you know what they say, sometimes you're afraid to write. And oh boy, I get that. I never understood the true meaning of being afraid to write. But I'm more afraid not to write. And I know you will understand that.
Well, Maria, this has been a great visit with
Yeah.
you. And as always, our last interview question on authors over 50 is, our writers over 50 are quite unique. Do you have advice for writers 50 and above?
I do. And I want to tell you what it is. I want to tell you that if you want to be a writer, we're already a writer. My advice to you is look back on your own life. And I want you to, when you write, I want you to write about your own life. And I want you to get a perspective on your own life, on your history, that you look at with rose-colored glasses. And I'm saying that because if you look at your life and you've seen how you've grown, things that are tragedies or trauma, if you can repair yourself from that, to me, that is growth. And to me, you may be able to look back on things with a silver lining perspective. Maybe this had to happen for a reason. And maybe what happened to me was bad and is bad. Maybe what happened to me is good. So I like to, at the risk of seeming trite or sugarcoating things, I like to look on the positive side of every single situation. And when I write, sometimes that means looking at factual things in a rose-colored manner, in which case they become fictional. And then your book is born. Hope that helps.
Well, we just thank you for sharing your exuberant spirit with us today. I know that you spread pure joy wherever you land, and now we can have your message before our very own eyes with your new book. And we just appreciate your being here with us today. And now we're excited to count you among our authors over 50.
Oh, I am so honored and excited, Julia. This was so much fun today, and so happy to be a part of all this. We just, you don't tell me you don't start living after 50, because you do.
Amen, sister.
Amen. And I look forward to future meetings and future books of yours.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us today. Please look for Authors Over 50 every Thursday, when we will have conversations with accomplished debut novelists over the age of 50. Please subscribe and share with a friend. And check out my own publication journey after 50 at www.juliadaily, that's D-A-I-L-Y, like dailynewspaper.com. Until next time, keep reading and writing. And remember, it's never too late to fulfill a dream in life's sweetest third.